Joining me now to weigh in from New York City is America's accountant Dan Geltrude. Dan, insurance companies, I'm sure, are in quite the frenzy. $40 billion on the high end of projected losses on insurance from Hurricane Ian. Insane.
I would not be surprised, Addison, if the number actually comes in higher. The most costly hurricane ever was Katrina, which I think was around 65 billion. And with inflation and everything that's going on right now in terms of costs being higher than normal, I think that this could be extremely costly. And there's a lot of people that are not going to have enough insurance. Well, they may not have any insurance to start with, but they may not have enough insurance to be able to cover their losses. Now, that really spells trouble for so many people that need all the help they can get right now.
And these tax relief, or these tax credits, rather, that Florida's offering right now, do you think that that's just going to be sort of a Band-Aid on a bullet hole for these people? What else do they need on top of that?
Well, obviously, they need food, they need shelter, they need a lot of things in the immediate. But, once that passes, Addison, and you start to really get back to, do I have a job anymore? Where I work, does it even exist anymore? So people really do need long-term help, and they need more help beyond an extension to file their tax returns, an extension to be able to pay their taxes. They're really going to need some type of a vehicle provided either by the state of Florida or the federal government to be able to get back on their feet. I mean, people are financially ruined by what's happened here.
Yeah, and you mentioned Hurricane Katrina. The price tag on that was $65 billion. It looks like Hurricane Ian will come in second place, but after Hurricane Ida from last year, which was about $36 billion in damage. Dan, for all of the money that Biden and that the White House has been throwing around flippantly, I mean, the tens of billions of dollars they sent overseas and everything else, their exorbitant Inflation Reduction Act, hundreds of billions of dollars, that money would be very useful for the people of Florida right now. For $40 billion, that's half of what we've given to Ukraine so far. But this administration, they keep spending and spending and spending, and then when push comes to shove, time like this, is it in the budget?
Well, that line right there about whether it's in the budget or whether we could afford it, that's a matter of political convenience.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
You really have to look at what do we need as Americans and for our country first. Yes, it's nice to help people around the world, and I'm not necessarily against that at all. But when it comes at the cost of being able to help our own people, or to turn around and say, well, we simply can't afford it, that's not true. We continue to print not billions, but trillions of dollars here, Addison, which we continue to spend and spend and spend, which, quite frankly, is somewhat questionable to say the least. And now here we have a situation in Florida where we have people truly hurting. So you know what I say? Find the money.
Yeah, find the money. One more thing before we go, Dan. Food inflation is now at its worst since 1979. That's several decades. The personal consumption expenditures index for food up 12.4% compared to last year, just a short year ago, and the highest since February of 1979. Your thoughts on this? Because as we know, economic turmoil is rampant right now, especially for people in Florida, and eating is a must in America and throughout the world. Now Americans are paying more than they have in several decades to be able to eat, and they have less money than they have in several decades at the same time.
Well, this is extraordinarily troubling if you ask me, because when we start to get to a point where food is so expensive that people need to cut back on what they eat, how much they eat. I mean, that's really crazy. If you look at what Mexico is doing right now in order to try to bring down inflation with food in their country, they're cutting back on food exports. Why? Because they're saying, well, with supply and demand, we need more supply of food to feed people in our country at a reasonable price. So when you look at the United States, how could this possibly be happening? And it's actually simple if you look at it. Yes, people are making more money, but if you make more money, you pay more tax. Keep that in mind, so you net less. And on top of that, things like food costing more. So people may be making more here, Addison, but they have much less. So I say, wake up, people, and start to realize that it's the bottom line that counts, not all this other nonsense. How much money do I have left to buy the things I need, and how much do those things cost?
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Food banks are fixing to see another impressive line of traffic at their locations, unfortunately. Dan Geltrude, America's Accountant, great to have you on the show, as always. Take care.
Thank you, Addison.